Good evening. I am Linda Peavy, Director of Communications for the Progressive National Baptist Convention. Welcome to the PNBC Webinar Series, Be Free, Journey to Financial Freedom. The stellar panelists for this evening are as follows. Dr. DeForest Soares, creator of dfree and senior pastor of First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens, Somerset, New Jersey. Tamika Stembridge, Esquire, is an attorney, member of First Baptist, and currently serves as National Coordinator for dfree. Michelle Dutton is a Senior Executive at Verizon, member of First Baptist, and the Ministry Leader of dfree. During the webinar, please feel free to type any questions into the chat box in the lower right-hand corner. As this is an interactive webinar, you can pose questions throughout the presentation. Any questions not answered during the webinar will be compiled, answered, and sent to you via email. The webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording via email. You will also receive a very brief survey regarding the presentation. Please take the time to complete it, as your feedback is important as we strive to provide you with the best services. We will now begin dfree, Journey to Financial Freedom.
Well, thank you, Linda Peavy. First, thank you for this progressive and innovative use of technology to link the churches of the Progressive National Baptist Convention to resources that can help us be better churches. I'm grateful to Dr. Perkins for his vision, for his innovation, for his leadership, and I'm certainly grateful to God that he has used you in service to the convention to expand our reach, to strengthen our fellowship, and to enhance our capacity. Before we begin, however, I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge the fact that one of the founders of this great convention has gone home to be with the Lord, one of the great leaders of the 20th century, one of the great preachers of all time, the Reverend Dr. Gardner C. Taylor, President Emeritus of the Progressive National Baptist Convention and Pastor Emeritus of the Concord Baptist Church in Brooklyn. Dr. Taylor was not only a great leader and great preacher, a great supporter of Martin Luther King Jr., but he was also my professor at Princeton Theological Seminary. I had the distinct honor of having two great ecclesiastical giants teach me at that school. Although it's a Presbyterian school, I had the honor of sitting at the feet of Dr. Samuel Proctor, who was the pastor of the Abyssinian Church at that time, and who was eulogized by Dr. Taylor. And of course, I had an opportunity while working on my second master's at Princeton to be with Dr. Taylor. And among the rich learnings that I received from Dr. Taylor was an introduction to the 17th and 18th century European preachers that he actually loved, and he loved to teach and make reference to. The homegoing celebration will be next Monday in Brooklyn, Monday morning. I'll be there. I'm sure Dr. Perkins will be there. But I am grateful to Dr. Taylor for his vision, and were it not for his vision, we would not be here tonight. So thank God for Gardner C. Taylor. We've been asked to share with the churches of the Progressive Convention a ministry that is now 10 years old at First Baptist Church and 5 years old as it relates to reaching out beyond the walls of our congregation into the nation. And that ministry is called dfree. I have been in the ministry now for 40 years. And when I started in 1975, one of the stories that I don't like to tell, but I have to tell, that help people understand who I am and where I'm coming from, is the story of what happened to me right after I was licensed to preach. I was licensed by my dad in February of 1975 to preach, and it was just a couple of weeks later that I was driving my car from Newark to a suburb outside of Newark, and a friend of mine literally stopped me right on the street. He saw my car, he pulled me over, he congratulated me and said, "I heard that you're a preacher now." I said, "Yes, thank you. I was just licensed to preach." And he said, "Well, you can't drive this Chevrolet any longer." And I was driving a nice Malibu. I had owned it for a few years. It was paid for. And I looked at him and said, well, what do you mean? He said, preachers don't drive Chevys. Preachers drive Cadillacs. Now, I should have been clued into the fact that he would think that and say that because he was a Cadillac salesman part-time. But I was so preoccupied with the imagery and with the substance of what he said. When he said preachers don't drive Chevys, preachers drive Cadillacs, instead of me telling him, look, Lou, my church is too small to pay me a salary that will allow me to afford a Cadillac, instead of me telling him that my image on the outside did not define who I was on the inside, instead of me telling him that I just could not afford a Cadillac and that a Cadillac would make me a better pastor or preacher than a Chevy, instead of me saying all of those things that would make sense to me today, when he told me that preachers don't drive Cadillacs, don't drive Chevys, I said, you know what, you're right. And I traded in my Chevy and I bought a Cadillac, and that Cadillac, the car payment was half of my salary, and I was driving around town now looking like a preacher in my mind, but I was incapable of doing anything meaningful with my money. I had no bank account, I had no savings, I had no emergency fund, I had no life insurance. My small church wasn't able to give me a retirement package, and so I saved nothing for retirement. I was a civil rights activist. I was working for justice. I was fighting racism, and I was absolutely, completely, thoroughly broke. And driving the Cadillac was just one more example of how I lived above my means. I lived paycheck to paycheck. And at that point, even though I was a licensed preacher and soon became a pastor because of the death of my father, I couldn't even tithe to my own church. I was preaching against racism. I was fighting for justice. I had worked as national director for Operation Push under Reverend Jesse Jackson, and I was broke. And I lived that way for 15 years. Of course, when I was 18, I got my first credit card. And by the time I was preaching, I had learned how to live off of credit cards. I had credit cards that I used to pay off other credit card balances. I'd make the minimum payment. I didn't care what the interest rate was. And for 15 years of my life, I lived just like that. So what you're about to hear from Tamika and from Michelle and myself really stems from the fact that I lived a lie financially for 15 years of my life. And it really took my grandmother's death to awaken me to the fact that it's not how much money you make or it's not how little money you make, it's how you handle money that determines the outcome of your financial status. Of course, I've been preaching about going to heaven, I've been preaching about Pharaoh letting God's people go, but I had completely skipped over Proverbs 22:7 that said that the borrower is slave to the lender. I had completely ignored the idea that Proverbs 13:22 was right when it said that a good person leaves an inheritance to his children's children. I thought a good person was someone that marched on demonstrations, that registered to vote, that fought for all of the things that the Progressive Convention stands for. But notwithstanding the fact that the Bible says that's good to do, but included in your understanding should be leaving an inheritance or legacy for your children's children. So in 1981, after 15 years of living that way, my father's mother died. My father's mother had 6 children. After her 6th child, her husband had a stroke. And after her husband's stroke, she had to raise these 6 children, care for her husband all alone. Black woman in New York, born in 1901, and didn't have her civil rights, didn't have education. She was a 6th grade graduate, but she could sew clothes. And my grandmother, as a seamstress, made a living raising these children, caring for her husband as a seamstress. And she just sewed other people's clothes for a living. But when she died at 80 years old, she owned 3 houses, completely paid for. The first house was a house in Brooklyn, not far from where Dr. Taylor pastored, right down the street from Sandy Ray, in Crown Heights section, where there was a 5-story brownstone that she left paid for. When she died, she left the house to my aunt. When my aunt died, she left the house to my cousin. My cousin didn't need a 5-story brownstone to live in by herself, and she sold the house for $1 million. That's her children's children. The second house was a 22-bedroom abandoned hotel that my grandmother bought back in the 60s, so the children from the church would have a place to go in the summertime. And when she bought the house, it cost $12,000. When she died, it was worth about $40,000 to $50,000 per acre, and it was on 20 acres of land. She left that house to my uncle, her oldest son. And the third house was a 4-family apartment building in Brooklyn. It was the building where I was born. And she left that house to my uncle, and to me. My father died before she did, and so I was the oldest grandson. She treated me like a son. And so the first house I owned was given to me by a woman with a 6th grade education who had 6 children to raise without her civil rights, an invalid husband, and she owned 3 houses paid for. That house became a wake-up call for me, because I said to myself, it would be an absolute disaster if when I died, all I had to leave my children was credit card bills, knowing that my grandmother with no civil rights, no political power, would have those assets to leave us. And I decided after her funeral that I would have to change my life. Not spiritually, I thought, but as I began changing, as I began writing down all of my money that I spent. I didn't make much money, but I didn't know where it went. I'd say to my dad, Dad, I need a loan, and he'd say, you work every day. And I'd say, yeah, but I don't know where my money goes. And then his response was, well, it doesn't leave home while you're sleeping. It goes where you take it. So I started doing the basics, writing down the expenses that I had and every penny I spent. If I bought chewing gum, I wrote it down. If I got my shoes shine, I wrote it down. I began doing what we now teach people to do in dfree. The first D has to do with debt. I stopped using credit cards. I stopped borrowing money. I stopped buying furniture at those stores that will sell you $1,000 worth of furniture and you pay $22 a month for 93 years. I started doing all of these basic things, and now what we do is we teach people essentially what the Bible says and what I learned how to do based on what the Bible does say. And finally, by the time I got married, I was able to go to the realtor, buy my first house after marriage without any debt at all. So what we are doing now at First Baptist and now at hundreds of churches around the country is teaching people a strategy that focuses on freedom rather than debt, a strategy that starts with very basics. You know, I'm so tired of hearing people talk about if all the black people in the country put all of our money together, what we could do. It starts one person at a time. We are not going to be financially free giving big speeches about the $1 trillion that blacks spend across America. What I learned was that I had to stop buying shoes that I didn't need to wear. I had to stop buying neckties because I owned enough. I had to take control of my money and have my money start working for me instead of me working for my money. I had to take Luke chapter 15, the parable of the prodigal son, very seriously, because the prodigal son got in trouble because he was impatient, couldn't wait for his dad to die. He took all of the money his father gave him with him to the far country and spent every dime. What we're attempting to do based on the biblical truths that have existed from the beginning of time, and based on our cultural realities that sometimes cause us to spend money to feel better about ourselves because of historic oppression and because of systems that seem to repress us. We're attempting to help people be free, live without debt, without delinquencies, pay your bills on time, without late fees, and without your credit scores going down, and without deficits. Live within our means, so that we can have dfree. We can be free to make deposits. We can have our names on deeds because we own real estate and assets, and we can earn dividends from investments. And so our vision now is to help churches and leaders help our people develop the financial capacity to do what we're watching other people do from around the world when they come to our neighborhoods. I mean, in our congregation, we got tired of watching all of the fast food stores, all of the gas stations, all of the Dunkin' Donuts being owned by people who could barely understand our language. But they do it because of the way they handle money. They don't start out with more, but they end up with more because of the process. The biblical process for anything, including money, gets us where we need to be, and it doesn't matter how much money you make if you don't manage effectively the money that you have. Now, we also deal with issues like growing wealth. We talk about protecting wealth, and in fact, we have in our literature, and you'll hear this in a minute, exercises where people literally learn how to make more money. I mean, once you're managing your money, there comes a time in your life where you just need more money. And dfree is a holistic, culturally specific remedy to the psychological and emotional factors that drive us into overspending and cause us to miss the blessing of ultimately giving back. So Tamika Stembridge is going to walk you through the steps in the process and describe from a high level what we teach people and what we teach churches to teach people. And then Michelle Dutton is going to talk to you about how we've applied it at First Baptist and some of the things that we do every single month that you can participate in, and how we are prepared to serve you and to support your efforts to help others become financially free. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you to the Progressive Convention, and I look forward to working with one person or 1,000 people as the Spirit of the Lord is upon us and has anointed us to set financial captives free. Okay, Tamika, take it from me.
All right. Thanks, Pastor Stories. Good evening, everybody. As Pastor Stories was discussing, dfree really is about shifting our thoughts and our behaviors and our attitudes about money into positions where we're able to not just get out of debt, but get into being able to leave our children's children something to hold on to. So at a most basic level, the way dfree operates is we move along this continuum, moving from a situation of debt, delinquency, and deficit into one of leaving a legacy. So what you see here is our dfree lifestyle continuum, and we start with the basic dfree training, which is what we'll talk about tonight, where we really focus on taking people through the most basic levels of getting their financial house in order, establishing bank accounts, creating spending plans, obtaining the basics that you need to really sustain your monthly living expenses and to take care of any outstanding debts. From there, we look to help people build an emergency fund. So now that you understand how to function on a monthly basis, what are you putting away for a rainy day so that you don't automatically get thrown back into the cycle of debt if something should happen in your life. Sorry. And then we move to building wealth, looking at investments, real estate, stocks and bonds, and diversifying your portfolio. So now that you have, again, some money saved away for that rainy day, you can look to build some things, build assets that are going to grow for you and have your money work beyond you going to work every day. And then we move into wealth protection, where we're looking at life insurance, long-term care, and disability insurance, which are huge. We're living longer, and we do know that we need life insurance because death is inevitable. But what we don't necessarily prepare for is if you get a terminal illness or you get a long-term sickness that is going to take you out of the workforce but not necessarily take you out of existence. So you need to be able to fund your life through that process should that happen. And then lastly, leaving a legacy. So looking at your estate planning, your wills, trusts, and things of that nature to really set your family up so that they can reap the benefits of your financial well-being. And the entire approach in moving along this continuum really helps us to give participants the ability to handle their own financial responsibilities, to really own the entire process, to give them a willingness to help others to do the same, and then the capacity financially to actually leave something to future generations. So our approach, the way dfree is administered is we look at 3 different areas. First is education, which is the basic trainings that we provide to you all, and then eventually you will provide them to your own churches. It really focuses on not just the content of financial literacy, but more so the behaviors, the attitudes, and the spirits that go along with managing your money. We all know that we learn how to balance a bank account, that we shouldn't spend all of our money at a really early age, probably as soon as you started working. Unfortunately, somewhere between making money and looking to make a life, we forgot those things. And so what dfree does is we provide the training and the essentials to really get to the root causes of some of our attitudes and behaviors around money. And then as we take people through the process, what you'll realize is that there's a huge motivational factor that really helps to move people through the 12-step process. We have to be there to support and inspire each other. We don't necessarily like to talk about money within our own homes, let alone within group settings when we do dfree training. So, we really encourage, people that are taking the class to embrace each other and really help and support each other through the process. We'll talk about the $1 Billion Challenge and what it looks like for entire groups to go through dfree together and what that feels like for people going through it. And lastly, support. We connect people to resources to help them manage their financial situations and provide positive peer pressure. dfree, we have a repository of websites and products and complimentary books and speakers that really help to undergird the 12-step process that we promote on a regular basis. So with these three pieces together, you have a comprehensive approach that really allows you to support a dfree ministry and support people through the 12-step process. So as I mentioned, I keep referencing this 12-step process. dfree happens in 4 phases that each have 3 steps within them. First, you get started, where you're admitting the problem. You admit that you have some financial challenges in your life. You address the mess. You open your mail. You answer the phone. And then you adjust your attitude because you now have a realistic view of what your true financial situation is. And then the next step is to get control. So you start a spending plan. You start steering the power towards paying your bills on time and in amounts that you can afford to pay within this budget that you have. And then set a time for yourself. If you don't have a goal, you're not going to achieve it. So, say I want to be debt-free in 3 years. Or I want to be debt-free in 5 years. And really map out what that looks like for yourself. And between the text and the workbook, the dfree process takes you through that. And next we talk about getting ahead. So maximizing your margins, allowing your money to work for you. Minimizing the stress of financial management, so bringing in whether it's a financial planner, an attorney, or an accountant to really help to fine-tune your financial plans. And then maintaining the focus, continuing to monitor yourself, continuing to monitor your spending. Because hopefully as you go through the process, you'll start seeing some very quick wins. You may pay off a small bill that's been sitting on your desk for months that you just refuse to open. You may, adjust your mortgage or adjust the interest rate on your car note. So you're now seeing some additional income that you didn't see before. So how do you stay focused with this new financial freedom that you're experiencing? And then lastly, you guys are actually at this step right now, just expressing interest in, being a part of dfree, is giving back. The whole idea is that, you go through the dfree process, not just to get financially free for yourself, but to be able to create an environment where others can become debt-free as well. This is not, Pastor says, this is not prosperity preaching. This is not about us getting rich so we can ride off into the sunset in a Bentley. This really is about creating an environment where people are financially free and you're free from the stress and the burdens and the agony and the worry of being burdened by debt and being burdened by poor financial management. In addition to these topics, we offer monthly seminars, and we provide a list of topics to our teams that really focus on specific financial issues that plague our community primarily. So predatory lending, we just did a workshop on that last month, looking at payday loans and check cashing stores and the impact of those kinds of financial instruments on the overall financial health of people. We have a seminar coming up this month on April 18th about managing credit that will feature the nationally known money coach, Lynette Calfani-Cox, to talk about maintaining, establishing, and repairing your credit. We also offer workshops on savings and investments, wealth management, wealth protection, retirement planning, estate planning, tax planning, and financial planning for special groups, so college students, special needs cases, or disabled people. So, in addition to just having the basic format, we do recognize that people have specific questions, and that's where the seminars and the special programming that we do comes in. And Michelle is actually going to take you all through the process of starting a dfree ministry, but I will highlight quickly what.
Michelle, before you start, I just want to make sure the listeners and the participants tonight understand that all of this is what we help churches know how to do, and we train them for free.
Right.
We don't charge people to learn how to do this. And since we've been doing it for 10 years, we do this in the spirit of the scripture that says, to whom much is given, much is required. Our church has prospered as an institution as a result of people taking control of their finances, and we have more tithers, we have more special givers, we have an endowment, because when people begin handling their money in a biblical way, it includes giving tithes and offerings and benevolent funds. That's just a given. So I just want to inject that while Tamika was trying to wrestle with her technology.
We have an early question.
Okay.
The question is, it's about credit cards. Should an individual have at least one credit card for credit score purposes as long as they pay off the balance each billing cycle?
Yeah, we don't teach people not to have credit cards. The problem is that most people who are having the problems that I had, and that is using credit cards because they can't wait until they have the cash to pay for something, they are paying high interest rates, and the credit card is an enemy and not a friend. There is no reason not to have credit cards once you get control, but there's also no reason to have credit cards as if they're mandatory. A debit card can do essentially what a credit card does. And the FICO scoring system, you'll hear about this if you tune into our webinar on the 18th. FICO is changing the way they even score credit now, and they're going to include the way you pay your utility bill, the way you pay other kinds of bills other than your credit card bills. So it's not yes or no to credit cards. I know Dave Ramsey says absolutely not, no credit cards. I don't say that. I have credit cards. I use credit cards mostly for record-keeping purposes because they give me a summary of what I spend in what categories, but I pay my credit card bill within 3 days of making the charge, and so the money's already in the bank. So I don't want us to focus on the card. That's a how. The what is to live within your means, pay your bills on time, and to have a budget and a spending plan and save for the future. But that's a great question.
Thank you so much. And I have one other question. Would your group be available to provide this training in Kentucky?
Oh, yes. We're in Louisville now, and Bates Memorial Baptist Church is our lead church in Louisville. The executive pastor, Reverend French, is the dfree leader and coordinator, and we'll be coming to Kentucky, but we have trained Reverend French to train other people, and we'd be happy to work with you with Bates and in Kentucky.
Thank you.
Okay. Michelle, you talk a little bit about First Baptist and what the process has been to give them a feel for what it looks like when we do come to a local church and how the local church needs to begin thinking.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor. And before I speak about the way that First Baptist has introduced the dfree movement, if we can back up one slide, we were going to talk about some of the resources that we have. I think Tamika's screen froze in the middle of that. But as Pastor Sori said, we are able to support your ministries throughout this process, and we have several things that we do that support with. So Tamika, did you want to finish that?
Yes, real quick, just so that you know the tools and resources that we have available. Of course, there is the dfree textbook that details Pastor Sori's journey to financial freedom, in addition to giving some general topics. People tend to like to read it. For me, it was a Saturday read, and it was really easy to move through. And then there's also a complimentary workbook where you can go through the process yourself. We also use that workbook as a basis for the training that you would deliver and that we deliver in our churches. Speaking of training, those are the two things that we offer: leadership training for ministry leaders and clergy who are interested in starting dfree, and then also train the trainer to get your trainers ready to deliver the dfree content. We also have the $1 Billion Challenge website, which is our national platform for helping people to get out of debt. Our goal is to pay off $1 billion in consumer debt prayerfully by 2020. And with each church that joins the dfree movement, we invite you to create a group on $1 Billion Challenge where people can go in confidentially, list out all of their outstanding debts, and create a payment schedule for themselves to really reach their dfree payoff goal. So that is a national initiative. And I'll just be clear, you can do $1 Billion Challenge without even, you can have a dfree environment without doing full-on dfree training. You can utilize the $1 Billion Challenge as a baseline for your church, set a goal, and just get people to commit to adopting a different lifestyle around money. So the $1 Billion Challenge is very helpful. It's a great entry point for churches and organizations who are interested in starting the process. So we really encourage you all to check that out. And then again, as we've been making reference to the seminars and events that we do, we also have some dfree promo materials that we'll send along if you're interested in purchasing books. We try to get, to create an environment of dfree, and Michelle is going to speak a little bit more to that as well, but we just wanted to cover the basic content and materials that we make available.
I don't see the websites on here as dfree content and support. We've got a YouTube page with videos with testimonials. Is that coming up?
Yes, it's coming.
Oh, okay. I'll keep quiet.
That does fall under the other resources, so thank you, Tamika and Pastor. And we are very excited about the movement that we're creating with dfree, and it really is catching hold. As Pastor and Tamika has said, this is catching hold for churches around the country and around the world. We're not only in a domestic space, we're also in Africa and Botswana and Ghana. So we're excited about getting people energized about paying down debt and moving along that financial continuum, because as Tamika said, we are looking at a lifestyle change. So we really want people to embrace this overall lifestyle change. Just as you think about, when you want to lose weight, you don't just have a diet and then everything is fine. You have to have a support mechanism, you have to have a strategy, and you have to really evaluate how you're living your life that's causing you to do the things that you do. So that's what we examine in the world of dfree. And so we have to start off, when we think about dfree and launching it into a community, into a church, into another organization, you have to have a vision, or a person or a leader with a vision. So we have that nationally with Dr. Soares. So we want to create that in the church or organization that you're going to launch dfree in. So you need that organizational leader who knows the congregation locally, who knows the needs of that congregation, that can really relate to how they need to receive information. And so with that, you start off with the vision, you get the buy-in of the leadership, because you really can't move forward and have a sustainable, repeatable process if you do not have the support of the current leadership in that space. And so you have to build up the leadership to be able to lead in this initiative, because dfree is only successful if you can incorporate it into the fabric of the being of whatever organization you're in. So with that, you have to have some formal leadership training. We offer that as a part of the dfree organization that we're launching here. So we have the Train the Trainer workshops, as Tamika said, where we can do this online with you. We can come out and work with you, with your organization. You can do that through the PNBC as well. And so we'll work with you to make sure that you have leaders trained or trainers trained to train others so that you can launch your program. Because a key component, as Tamika said, is the educational piece. So with this 12-step process where we can walk you through a systematic way of really becoming dfree, we'll provide that leadership training for you so that you can train your congregation. Along with that, you have to have structured members within that educational space, and I'll talk about some of the roles and responsibilities on the next slide. But you really need all of these people to come together to create that movement, because without it, it's just a program. You have to create the momentum and the ongoing visibility to really drive the movement forward. And with that, at First Baptist, we have a celebration every fourth Sunday, and people really look forward to this, because fourth Sunday is dfree Sunday. And we invite the church to, one, we talk about the upcoming events, the upcoming seminars, talk about the progress to date, but then we actually invite people from the congregation to just let us know what debt they have paid off, if they've introduced a new portfolio, if they were able to open a new account, a new savings account, if they signed up for something new that they were educated about through the dfree moment. the dfree movement, then we invite them to announce that in church, in front of the church, so that we can celebrate with them and embrace that victory. Because as we know, testimonies are powerful, because through testimonies, we also give people hope as they go through this whole journey. And so you have to create that environment to make the movement go forward, because all of us like to be a part of something that's successful. And that's what we drive throughout the dfree movement, is we publicize those successes, we support you along the journey. As you hit those pitfalls, we're there with you to support you with education tools and knowledge of where you can get support. We connect you with people and resources. So we're really meeting you where you are and moving you forward. So we want to create that momentum within your church so that you can provide a support system for people who are moving throughout the dfree process. And the first thing you want to do on the next slide is start with a goal in mind. At First Baptist, we've embraced the $1 billion challenge. So we've asked the church to come up with $1 million in debt that they can commit to paying down. Imagine what we can do as a culture, as a people, as a church, if we get people moving towards paying down $1 million. So that's our commitment as a part of the overall $1 billion challenge. And that really presents a tangible goal that you can rally around, and people can really visualize when they commit to paying down a certain amount towards that goal. And so when you set the goal out there, then people will quickly, once they sign up and make that commitment, they'll quickly start to figure out, now how am I going to get there? What will I do differently that will allow me to meet this goal that I haven't done before to pay down this debt? And that's when the whole dfree process really kicks in. So we start with setting a goal, you engage them in the $1 billion challenge, and then on the next slide, what you'll see is it helps you to create that overall culture. So you can set a goal within your organization or your church to get it started, and then you quickly follow up with, now to get there, let me provide you with education, motivation, and support to launch the 12 Steps to Financial Freedom. And that's when you engage people in the training class. If they cannot participate or commit to the 12 weeks that the training process will take, then you can also invite them to participate in monthly seminars. We host monthly seminars at First Baptist. We try to make sure that they're available via a live stream, so you're invited to join in for that. Or you can also create monthly seminars within your church, because what you'll see is that people will quickly start to ask about different topics or need follow-up from the classes as a support mechanism to make the process sustainable. So we invite you to think about, setting up. You can start off, you don't have to start off every month. You can start off once a quarter. You can start off based on what you can do within your means of your churches, but you have to have some ongoing support to keep the vision alive and to keep it visible and in the forefront. So with that, given that we have our live streaming, you're invited to really participate there as well. You can go on www.mydfree.org and see all the different events that you can participate in to help keep the vision alive. And then you have to set up a way to celebrate the successes so that you can motivate people. This is hard work. If dfree was easy, then we would be economically empowered as a people as we speak. So given the complexity and how difficult it is to get there, you really want to make sure that you celebrate those wins. And within our training, we talk about how to create wins or get some low-hanging fruit to get people motivated to do more. So you don't start off with your largest credit card because you won't see the progress. You start off with a goal that you can really accomplish quickly so you can get that momentum going. And then once you do all of those things, then you want to make sure that you're integrating your ministry leaders so that they can cascade the message throughout the church. Because if the ministry leaders get engaged, if you have the choir competing with the ushers, competing against the women's ministry, then you have that positive peer pressure to really move the movement forward. And so then you can really start to see it get embraced throughout the fabric of the organization or the church. And that's where you really want it. You want the choirs, after they open up in prayer to talk about, can we celebrate anyone who has paid off debt this week or since the last choir meeting, so that you can energize people around the goal.
Let me say this, because it's very important to understand that 80% of African Americans, when asked about financial priorities, their answer is to get out of debt. And that's $25,000 a year earners, it's $125,000 a year earners. And while our whole focus is not on debt, the reality is we'll never own a home, we'll never be able to tithe the way we should. We'll never be able to own businesses. We'll never do all these lofty things that everybody likes to preach and prophesy about as long as we're in debt. So getting out of debt is the first step to financial freedom. There are other steps. So if you hear us talking about debt, it's not because it's the only goal, but it's because we can't reach the other goals until we conquer that goal.
Thank you. And I have another question for the panel. Can several small churches in the same geographical area come together for leadership training to be a part of the program?
Oh, absolutely. We've started that process in Indianapolis. We have about 18 churches in Indianapolis, all close to each other, that are working together. We're launching in Philadelphia. In fact, it's easier for us if churches come together and work together. We'll create a page on our website so that anybody in your region knows all the churches. So absolutely, it is much easier, which is why we're doing this through the Progressive Convention. I mean, we have offered Dr. Perkins and Sister Levy dfree as a free resource for churches around the country to ensure that we can make an impact on our people. Listen, we know how to protest when we're mad. We know how to do politics when we have a candidate we support, but we're still broke. What we don't have is a strategy. We have financial dreams, but we don't have a financial strategy. And what the Lord has given us at First Baptist has caused our church to prosper. Every year we have a surplus. We've built houses. We've done health clinics. Our church is a blessed church. The year we started this, the income went up by $1 million. And we just feel that the Lord gave us this not just for us, but to give away through the Progressive, through the Full Gospel Convention, through the National Convention, and because of Ms. Dutton here, through the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. So we would love to see a few churches come together anywhere, and those churches will be much easier to serve collectively than they would be individually.
Thank you.
That was a great question. And as we talked about with providing support as well, it's a wonderful opportunity for churches to support one another beyond the 12 steps when you think about coming together to perform the workshops or to bring in guest speakers. It's much easier when you have multiple organizations or churches coming together to support one another.
Well, it's also an evangelistic strategy. You know, we have a young lady on our team. She's in Europe right now, but we have a young lady on our leadership team who came to First Baptist because of dfree. We have discovered that people will come to church to attend a class on financial management that won't come to prayer meeting or Bible study or even Sunday morning, but when they've discovered that we are teaching them how to handle their money wisely and effectively based on the teachings of Jesus. It's an evangelistic tool. It's a discipleship tool. It's taking the Bible and offering solutions to right now problems, most of which in our community are economic. Let's go to the next slide. You don't have to get into this much detail, I think, tonight.
Okay. Nope. Just want to mention really quick, just one thing on that slide. It just shows the, if you back up one more slide, it just shows the different people that you can engage. So it's just a summary of that. The ministry leader, someone to bring it all together. A program administrator is important because as you have the different classes and the different programs, we want to be able to track our success and make sure that we are making that visible because, like I said, everyone would like to be a part of, a successful movement. We talked about the trainers. And then the other piece is a marketing team to just really help get the word out because there's a lot of good information. You'll see when you see the curriculum and the classes and the books and the workshops and the webinars, it's a lot of good information, and we can only be blessed if we show up. So we want to make sure that you have a solid marketing team to really get the word out. And if we go to the next slide, these next few slides actually just talk about how to get started and how long it takes to get started. So the important piece here is to identify the key leaders that I've been speaking about, identify the leadership training and ministry coordination, Next slide shows creating the awareness and enthusiasm, and then planning a launch. And depending on the size of your organization or the size of your church, or if you combine churches together, then it could take anywhere from, you can get started within a month if you're just going to focus on the training, to maybe 6 months if you're going to really lay it out with the groundwork of a larger movement that's going to incorporate the different components that we've talked about here. So this is a framework that we're showing you here, but it's important to know your audience, know your congregation, so that you can shape this launch around them. But it's important to build toward that launch so that you can create the interest and awareness. And what we recommend is doing that around the $1 Billion Challenge. So get people really motivated to make a big commitment for what they want to pay down, and then get them excited and ready for the process to help them meet that commitment. And the last slide just really talks about celebrating your success, making sure that we make it real for people. We celebrate with them. We pray with them as they are overcoming these hurdles, because as we said, it really is complex. It's complicated work. It's hard work. It's emotional work, because you're starting to deal with what is really driving you to spend the way that you spend. So that's really how we've launched it at First Baptist. We're still in the midst of planning. We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary, so the celebration piece is really big. So any questions or comments from what we've presented so far?
The key is this. The financial issues that confront us represent the proverbial elephant in the room. And everything from families needing churches to pay for funerals because they have no insurance, people coming to the benevolent fund to pay their rent next month, to people coming to church every Sunday and not giving in the offering. I mean, we have a growing number of people in congregations around America who do not support the church financially. And when we challenge them about it, the words bounce off of their heads. We've learned at First Baptist that when God uses the church to help the people manage their resources, the people without browbeating, without any special campaigns, without slapping oil on people's heads or promising people that God will turn into Santa Claus, those people will help and support the church. That's what we've learned. It's theologically sound, it's socially relevant, and for progressive, it's critical to know the social justice component. We organize against predatory lending. We have picketed payday loan stores throughout the country, which represent the crack cocaine of the financial services industry. We've testified, we've written articles, and we're trying to mobilize the church to respond whenever we see our people being ripped off by crazy financial schemes. We want to stand up to that the same way we stand up to other police violence is no better or worse than economic violence. And we're the victims of economic violence, but we got to open our mail to know it.
Thank you. We do have a question. I'm sorry, Doctor. Sorry.
So we're out of time. You told us to spend the last 10 minutes only answering questions. We will send a copy of this deck and any information we have, but these are all websites that we have. YouTube page, mydfree.org, and you can get more and more information.
Okay, thank you. We do have a question. What is the cost for all of the needed materials? Also, where and when is the Philadelphia launch, as our church is in Philadelphia?
Let me address question one. I'll let our national coordinator address question two. The textbook costs $15. We sell it to churches at a deep discount if they buy a box of books. The workbook costs $12, and again, we sell it to churches, and I think we sell the workbook, for instance, for I think it's $8 and the textbook for $12. And some churches will pass the saving through to the members. We don't recommend that churches give the books to people because people don't appreciate what they get for free. But we pass the savings along if we care to, which means that for $12 for the book and $8 for the workbook, a member of your church or community or family can get the whole curriculum for $20. Everything else is free. In fact, we won't allow churches to charge people to go to dfree classes. This is like Bible study, Sunday school. This is not a special program. This is a part of the teaching ministry of the church and a part of the worship when we celebrate. We don't charge churches for training. We have video resources that are online for free. This is not about making money. Obviously, we cover our expenses, and from time to time, we get some corporate friends that will help us by giving us money to cover our expenses to make sure we can keep it free for churches. All of the book sales that we generate go into a foundation, and the foundation pays for the website. The foundation pays for books to go to little churches that can't afford to buy books, and of course to the Caribbean and Africa. Michelle mentioned we're in Ghana and Botswana, and we just give books to our friends in Africa for free.
Thank you. The second part of the question was where and when is the Philadelphia launch as our church is in Philadelphia?
So we just gave a clergy breakfast on March 20th where we had about 20 clergy leaders from the Philadelphia area. As a follow-up to that breakfast, we are scheduling a training for Philadelphia hot off the press. It will be May 30th is the date that we're targeting. Linda, if you can make sure you have their contact information, we'll be sure to send you the advertisement when it comes out. But we do have clergy leadership in Philly that's very excited to get things started, and so hold May 30th. It's a Saturday. The training will probably be in the morning, so save the date, and we'll see you there.
But Reverend Blanks at Vine Memorial Baptist Church, who is the executive pastor there, he is pulling this together along with the African American clergy and the Baptist Ministers Conference of Philadelphia.
Thank you.
And Michelle is very happy that you asked that question because she's from Philadelphia, and every time the word Philadelphia is mentioned, she just gets good, warm feelings.
Yeah.
One other question, is there a launch program in Pittsburgh?
No, we have not talked to Pittsburgh. I've talked to Pastor Curtis from time to time. We have not, that I know of. Tamika, do we have any requests from Pittsburgh?
No, this would be the first one. But I will say when we do our training, we have stepped into the new millennium, so we do try to live stream them when we do launch training. We just did our first one last month. So we talked a little bit about leadership training and train the trainer. We have created a nice, almost fast food version of everything that you would need to launch dfree, and that's what we'll be offering in Philadelphia. And it will also prayerfully be streamed, or at the very least recorded, so that you could watch it and get what you need to get started.
The fact of the matter is this is really not rocket science, and while we will do what we call training, anybody who has ever organized anything and who loves our people and who loves God and who reads the Bible, if you read the book and the workbook, you'll know what to do.
Yeah. And I'm
not saying don't be trained, but what I'm saying is that, you don't need a degree in finance. I've never taken a course in finance in my life. I was trained by bill collectors calling me every Tuesday and Thursday night asking me when they will get some money. That's where I got my training.
Yeah. And the training that we provide also comes along with a script. So we provide the presentations, we provide the messaging. You could do this with your eyes open and reading at the very least if you needed to. So
yeah, that is one of the benefits of the training. They've worked very hard on making this a kind of paint by numbers. So if you do have any apprehensions, you can just follow the script with a group of people and walk them through it. You don't have to be a financial expert. In fact, it's almost best that you're not a financial expert, because financial experts have a tendency to talk over people's heads. What's best is when you've had some struggles yourself, or you're still struggling with some issues, and you're working with a group of fellow parishioners or fellow ushers or fellow choir members to kind of rise out of the pit together and look forward to the promised land one day.
Thank you. And we do have the information from the church in Philadelphia, Reverend Maxine Collier, so I will make sure that you receive the information. She is commending everyone on the informational resource that was just provided. So thank you very much, Reverend Collier. I appreciate the fact that this has been informative. Are there any additional questions?
And Linda, while you ask for additional questions, one other thing I was going to mention, because as Pastor Suri said on this slide, there's additional websites that you can go to get additional information. Also, a great source of information is the book itself. There's a whole section on resources in the back of the book that will give you different websites by topic that you can access. Some of them are nonprofit organizations, some of them may cost, but it's a collection of websites that you can go to get more information around finances, dfree, about your credit, and financial management. So I also recommend just taking a look at that as well for additional information.
Yeah, and Linda, we will be at the Progressive Convention in August. We also are having a national gathering of churches that have either expressed an interest in doing this work or have already started, and it's going to be October 30th and 31st at our church in New Jersey. And so you can mark your calendars. It'll be one price for the whole church, so you can bring one person or 89 people, and there'll be one registration fee for the church. And you'll come, we'll have workshops, we'll have best practices, we'll give awards to churches that are doing a great job. We had a church in Chicago last month buy 800 copies of the book to use in their capital campaign, because the pastor decided, along with the committee, that this content was the best content he could use to motivate his people and instruct his people in a biblical way that's culturally relevant. So we'll have them, we'll probably give them an award, unless you buy 801 books, we'll give you the award. But I suspect they'll win the dfree of the Church award.
Thank you. One other question which you have answered, will this be offered in the PNBC College of Christian Education at the convention?
Well, there are higher powers than I that make those kinds of decisions. We're available to serve when we're asked and however we're asked. We've made a commitment to Dr. Perkins and to Sister Peavy to be a resource that they can offer by whatever means they choose to. We will be at the Full Gospel Convention. We were just at the National Baptist Convention, and we're with the National Baptist Convention of America. So we're working with about 7 national groups. We consider Progressive our partner, which means that we serve based on your description of your need.
Thank you. A couple of last comments coming in. Baptist Temple Church in Pittsburgh would be willing to host and be a part of the launch. So I do have that information. And a couple of other comments just thanking you for the information. And it is 8:30, so we do want to wrap up the webinar. I want to again very much thank Dr. Stories and Tamika Stembridge and Michelle Dutton for the information tonight. It's been very, very informative. And again, to all of the attendees, thank you so much for being a part of the webinar tonight. You will receive a recording of the webinar via email. If you have any additional questions, you can do so when you receive the email. You can just reach out at that time, and we will pass them on to Dr. Stories and his team at First Baptist Church in Lincoln Gardens. So again, thank you so much. Is there any parting words that you like to provide to the attendees, the panel?
Pastor?
Oh, you're asking us if we have parting words?
Yes.
Yes.
We could join hands and sing, "Blessed be the tie that binds." That's the Baptist way, right? No, just kidding, just kidding. No, I'm appreciative to the Progressive Convention and pray that God will use us effectively to serve you. And to the extent that you have an interest in empowering people on a level that meets their realities and their needs, we believe, based on our 10 years of experience, that God has given us something that we should share.
Absolutely.
And, if you go to the YouTube page, you'll see the link here. There are a number of testimonials there and presentations that will give you good flavor for what we have done, what we're trying to do, and where we're going.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you all of the attendees, and you have a very, very blessed evening.
You too, Linda.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.